Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. Check. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to Get This Game, where we're all about the board gaming goodness. I'm Jake, and not to toot my own horn too much, but this has just been a really solid few weeks and months of gaming for me. Have had a lot of social events and kind of hangouts with family and friends the last few months, and that has led to getting the chance to get a lot of games to the table and getting them played, and just kind of having that shared experience. Now, if you are very interested in learning more about this game, this game, this game, this game, or this game, well, those are some of the ones I played in the last month, and I'm going to be doing some mini reviews about them. Quick overviews about how they work. If that interests you, you can hear my thoughts about them and their scores. These are just games that don't necessarily warrant their full video. That's not going to say that they aren't good games and that they don't deserve the time that I'm going to be speaking to them. They're just a little bit lighter, a little bit more straightforward, and so there's just a little less to say about them. Again, no knock on them whatsoever, but we're just going to go quickly through 5 games that I've played lately, how they work, what my scores are, and then you can decide if they're going to be the right fit for you. Of course, if there's a game here that resonated with you, or a game reviewer that resonated with you too, I would encourage you, please consider subscribing to Get This Game. Hit the notification bell for all my future videos. We're getting more consistent and at least getting out 1 video a week. And do leave a comment about whether you've played these games, any games that you have played kind of as these colder months have set in and there's just been more time for that kind of family and friend time. Would love to know. And of course, you can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram if short form is more your vibe. First up is going to be Loco Momo, which comes to us from Blam and WWBG, and this was provided to me for review. In this game, animals in the woods have found a camera, and now they're trying to set themselves up and arrange themselves so that they can take the perfect group photo. Now, how that comes into the game world and how you're actually going to play it is basically you're going to be drafting these animal tiles with different colored backgrounds and adding them and arranging them on your player board so that you are creating kind of rows and columns of animals that will score points in different ways. Sometimes certain rows you'll want to have all of the same animal type, others you'll want unique animals in that row. You'll be collecting sets or pairs. And around all of this, you're also keeping in mind the colored backgrounds and trying to group those together to score extra points. What does set Loco Momo apart compared to other maybe tile laying games is actually how you're going to take those tiles. You see, all of the tiles that you'll have available are grouped into 4 kind of sets or 4 different groups of 4. On your turn, you will choose one of those animals, and before you actually take any tiles, each of those animals is going to move around the board in a different way depending on what type of animal it is. So if you choose a bunny, it is going to move clockwise into the next grouping. Cougars move counterclockwise. Bears stay where they are. Birds are going to fly diagonally to the other side of the board, etc. And then once that move has been made, you will then take all of the animal tiles that match the same colored background. So if I moved the green bunny 1 space over, I would then take the green bunny and any other animal in that cluster that also has a green background. So Loco Momo is going to get a 6.7 out of 10 for me. It is a fair game, maybe not a great game. What I did really appreciate is that kind of extra layer of how the animals move before you actually get to take any tiles. It just adds that extra little layer of thinking and strategy to your mind before you make your move. Compared to what would otherwise be a kind of rudimentary vanilla sort of tile and set collection game. Not only do I have to think about what animal I want to take in the first place, I have to think about how it is going to move around the board and what other animals that match that background are in the new space they're going to end up, so that I'm, again, kind of optimizing my turn and I'm getting as many tiles as I can to then place on my player board. With that said, this is a nature tile laying game in a sea of other nature-themed tile laying games, right? There is a ton out there, and the market's starting to get a little oversaturated. So does Loco Momo belong on my shelf when there are also so many other tile laying nature games that I have played and maybe have rated higher and enjoy more? That's the question you kind of have to ask yourself. If you don't have a big collection, I think there is something here for kind of trying out something that is a little bit of a cute theme. There's just enough strategy here where you're playing a game and you're not just kind of checking off a box. This is definitely family weight, maybe like a hair step above family weight. So you'll want to keep that in mind before maybe committing to it. If you have a lot of other nature tile laying games, I'm not sure that you would necessarily need this one. But maybe you just love this theme and love this kind of system, and you do want to try something that adds just a little bit something different. Next up is Runemasters, coming to us from FunForge. Again, this game was provided to me as a copy for review. In this game, you are basically defenders of a temple or defenders of a dungeon, and there are going to be 4 lanes of monsters who will be rolling down and barreling towards the dungeon, and you're going to be rolling dice, matching up different runes to hopefully defeat them. Every monster that you're facing or monster that's coming down each of the 4 lanes has certain symbols that you're going to have to match based on your dice rolls. There's a few other things going on here. You're going to be playing as one of 4 Runemasters. They each have their own special ability and then also a kind of ultimate ability that you can kind of build up and then blast out just when the timing is right. There are going to be different events that you have to deal with turn after turn, and basically you're going to continue kind of battling and fighting and rolling dice around the table, staving off waves of monsters until you get to the end of the monster deck, where you will win the game. You're working together here. This gets a 5.8 out of 10 for me, bearing in mind that this necessarily isn't meant for me as a game. Yes, there is going to be a ton of luck here. There is a minor amount of luck mitigation in terms of being able to spend mana for rerolls here, but I did find that this game is very swingy with respect to the amount of luck that is found with it. In one of the games that I played, I think I had to end up facing 3 huge dragons early on. Dragons are the super difficult enemies to defeat. You can't just match up symbols against them. You have to roll 3 of the same symbol in one turn to actually defeat them, which is very hard to do. Needless to say, we didn't win that game. But there was another game later where we really did kind of breeze through the deck. We got the exact rune rolls that we needed to kind of cross everything off, and we won pretty handily. Now, that might not matter to you. I will say this is kind of maybe a little bit of a longer game than would justify the amount of luck therein. I don't mind if there's a ton of luck and it's just kind of silly and random if the game is pretty short. But this does kind of have a little bit more going on to it where you kind of get into that, I would say like in a full 4-player game, well over an hour. Under 4 players, like with 2 or 3, maybe like 45 minutes, you could probably get this done, depending on how well you roll. But all that's to say, I don't think that this is just the game that I am going to gravitate towards. I think this is going to be a fit for like a gamer family who maybe has a kid who is getting to kind of that 8 or 9 age range, where you can start to say like, hey, we've played some simple board games, and you like fantasy, here's something else to try, and here's something a little bit new. So yeah, maybe it is going to be the right fit for somebody else out there, but for me it is a 5.8 out of 10. Just not one that I am certainly is going to kind of fit my gamer needs necessarily, and one that I think maybe other people will have more fun with. There's just too much randomness going on here for me to truly enjoy it. Next up is a game even lighter than those first 2. This is Lumberjacks with rocket launchers, coming to us from Prolific Games, which again provided us a copy for review, so thank you for that. Not that this game is very theme forward, as you'll come to see, but you are just that. You are lumberjacks trying to launch rockets at one another. This is a pick up a card, play a card game, so very simple. On your turn, you'll have 3 cards in your hand. You'll choose one of them to play for its given effects. You just do what the card says, and then you draw up your hand size to max. Most of the cards, or many of the cards, are going to be actually rocket cards, and when you play those down, you're going to have them face either the person on your left or the person on your right. Play will continue where there's going to be a bunch of rockets out around the table, and then once somebody plays a rocket time card, all of the rockets will then move 1 space over to end up on the person next to that person. If anyone ever has 3 rockets pointing at them at any given time when a rocket time card is played, well, that person is officially blown up. They are out of the game, and you are trying to be the last person standing. There's a few other cards in this game. You are able to kind of mitigate when rockets are coming at you. You can move rockets through, you can block rockets and destroy them, but that really is essentially it. For me, this gets an even 7 out of 10. This is a good game, and especially especially a good party game. This goes from 3 players all the way up to 8 players, and I would say that the more players in this game, the better, because it is just silly fun. The more players and the more chaos you have going on, I think is going to be kind of better for you in this situation. In fact, the kind of downside and the problem that I have in this game is actually when it gets to those smaller player counts, when there are only 2 players or 3 players left. You end up having a bit of a stalling out of the game. I think the crescendo of the game is when there are a ton of people left, you have a ton of rockets going in all different directions and a bunch of rocket times being played, so you never really know exactly what's going on. Really the kind of epitome of randomness and craziness that sometimes you want a party game to have. But at lower player counts, the game kind of slogs. It takes a while to kind of really round up. And again, like I said, I think the climax kind of happens at those larger player counts earlier in the game when there were a bunch of people left. So I think you would want to bear that in mind, like bring this out in a large group. I think this is going to be a fit at a party or a lot of kind of non-gamers or with your family, simply because it is so easy and the chaos does kind of result in some of those funny, laughable moments around the table. Next up, another party game called Ito. This is a bit of an older game actually from ArcLight Games that recently Arcane Wonders has kind of revitalized and brought to North America. It is in the same vein as other cooperative party games like Fun Facts, Just One, etc., where you're going to be working together to try and put your cards in the correct order. Now, of course, it's not that simple. You are going to be first given a card secretly numbered from 1 to 100. You're then going to be given a category. So in this case, let's use the example, the best superpower to have. On the one end of the scale, a number 1 is like the worst power ever. At the other end of the scale, 100 is the best. Now, you are going to look at your numbered card and you're going to think of a clue to convey to the rest of the table exactly where your number is on that scale. So if I had something like a 99, I might say perfect complete invincibility. If I had a number 20, maybe I'll say something like you're always able to find your keys. Again, it's not the best power in the world, but it's certainly not a 1, which is just basically useless. After you have given your clue, you will then put your card secretly in the center, and then everyone else will do the same. You'll then have a conversation and discussion about where everything ends up. Do we feel good about the ordering of things? Oh, well, cousin Vinny said this thing, so maybe we want to switch it around with what grandma said. After that, and you've decided, yep, I think we have the right order, you will then reveal the cards, seeing if you had the right sequence from 1 all the way up to 100. If you do get it, great, you get to kind of add some other rules to make the game a little bit harder, but if not, you're going to go back to the drawing board and try again. This gets an 8.2 out of 10 for me. It's one of those party games which I think kind of captures some of the best party games where the score doesn't really matter. Where you're getting your fun and enjoyment is those conversations around this table, and then the big kind of crescendo when you're actually revealing all of your hard work to see if you actually got it. The more players with this game, the harder it gets, and I would again recommend that that's kind of where you want to play this. You want that chaos, you want those arguments, playful of course, around the table. You want those big laughs when someone gives a really funny clue, or you kind of were deciding and kind of trying to choose between agonizingly 2 specific cards, and then you get out and you see what the cards are and it just didn't work out that time. It's all just, again, a lot of fun, and it leaves open that opportunity for creativity. I think this game is a little bit group dependent. You want people who are maybe a little bit more outgoing, a little bit willing to think outside the box, because that does kind of lead to just a more fun game experience. But had a really great time with Ito, especially over the holidays with my family. So if that sounds good to you, you might want to consider this one. This is a very solid, great party game. And finally, Spotlight, which comes to us from Horrible Guild, and once again was provided to me for review, so thank you for sending that through. Spotlight is in the vein of Where's Waldo style games, similar to Micro Macro Crime City. But this one is definitely geared much more closer to kids, and that is because of the toy factor of how you're actually going to be playing the game. This is technically a cooperative game with some rules that can make it competitive, but what you're trying to do is you are going to be given this big kind of mosaic art with a lot of crowded people and things going on, and it's covered by a kind of cellophane sheet. What you're going to be doing is turning out the lights or making it a little bit dimmer in the room, and you're going to be given a specific person or thing to try and find in this massive kind of art scene. You're then going to take your little player flashlight, which is this basically long black sort of piece of paper with a white circle on the end. And you'll see that as you start to kind of explore and move this flashlight around the board, it is going to light up what would otherwise be a very dark scene so that you're actually getting to see a spotlight of the scene as you make your way around. You'll have a certain amount of time where you're trying to find as many of that thing or person as you can, and then at the end of the round you're going to compare how many everyone saw, and depending on how close you get to the actual numbers of that person or shape or thing in the scene, you'll get a certain number of points that you are trying to work towards to kind of get this collective score at the end of the game. This one is going to get a 7.6 out of 10 for me. I think this is going to be a really great family option for a lot of people out there in that same sort of vein as a Where's Waldo or an activity like Micro Macro Crime City, but of course this one is going to be a much more kind of approachable, more appropriate theme for kids. And I think that is where this belongs. This can be a great kind of Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon activity when it's a little bit colder out and you need to keep the kids busy. This is such a cool kind of element of a kind of Where's Waldo, find things in a scene sort of situation, with that very fun factor of having that flashlight that you're moving around. I am amazed that this game is the price that it is, considering the production value here. I don't ask me how the flashlights actually work. I couldn't tell you, but I do really appreciate that they created something here that is going to be as much fun just fooling around with as is the gameplay itself. I think a lot of this has to do with the beautiful, very kind of approachable, again, very childlike art found in here. It is going to kind of light up the page for a lot of kids and their parents. This is a really solid option, I think. Just something that's a little bit different for people to do that's 16 and up. It doesn't take very long. You can play for as long or as short as you want. You can probably get a full game in about 15 minutes, or again, just play for fun until you get bored of it. Again, great option here for families. I was really impressed by both the production value, the innovation here, as well as just the presentation overall. So that is going to be it for this time around on Get This Game. A bit of a mixed bag here, certainly some absolute bangers all the way down to maybe ones you might want to consider skipping. Of course, everything in between. Please, again, consider subscribing if you liked the reviews today, and you can go to check out my channel for a bunch of other larger, heavier reviews, lists, all of that good stuff. Again, consider following me on TikTok at Get This Game and on Instagram at Get This Board Game if you are looking for kind of snappier overviews as well. And as always, we'll see you next time, and thanks for playing with me.